Trevor Rogers certainly helped the Orioles avoid the mop on Sunday, but every starting pitcher not named Trevor Rogers, maybe every pitcher not named Trevor Rogers, had a bad time against the Astros in the series loss this weekend. And I'll recap it coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, August 25th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the final three games of the four-game set between the Orioles and the Astros this weekend, as the O's dropped 3 out of 4, lost some close, high-scoring affairs on Friday and Saturday after the loss on Thursday, but then got a one-run win on Sunday, a great start from Trevor Rogers to avoid the mopping at the hands of Houston. I'll recap everything you need to know from the final three games of that series coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any tournament in the U.S. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament and ends October 31st, 2025. So let's talk Orioles and Astros. Of course, despite a series loss for the O's, they dropped 3 out of 4 at home to this Houston team. It was a good weekend, right? Vimael Machin inks an 8-year contract extension with the Orioles on Friday. If you'd like to hear all about that extension, I did a separate episode on Sunday. It is in your feeds wherever you listen. It's here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can catch that episode from Sunday breaking down the Vimael Machin contract extension from every single angle. Unfortunately, although the news did drop on Friday, I was out of town, got back on Sunday, and made sure to get you that episode as soon as possible so you can go and check that one out. O's still had some baseball games to play, though, after that exciting news. Remember, they lost the opener of this series 7-2 on Thursday night. I recapped that loss, including Dylan Beaver's first career homer in Friday's episode, so you can go back and check that one out as well. This will be about the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday games. So let's start with Friday night. Final score from that one in a high-scoring affair, Astros 10 and the Orioles 7 in that one. What went right from Friday night's game? Well, for the Orioles, it was the offense. All 9 starters in the lineup on Friday night reaching base, with 8 of the 9 getting hits. Coby Mayo was the only one without a hit on Friday, and he did draw a walk, helping with this Oriole offense. And it was just a lot of different contributors and really kind of not the usual contributors. Jeremiah Jackson had 2 hits and 3 RBIs. It was his first career game in the big leagues with multiple runs batted in. Jackson had a big weekend this weekend. Luis Vasquez had his first multi-hit game. He was starting at third base on Friday night with the Jordan Westburg news that we will get to. Colton Cowser hit a home run. That's always good to see. And a hit and a walk for Dylan Beavers, who continues to swing the bat well. And then how about Alex Jackson? I would say a good and bad thing for him at the plate. Jackson had 2 hits, a couple of singles on Friday night as he got the start at catcher for the Orioles. You always like to see that from essentially your number 3 catcher. But it also ends that crazy streak that Alex Jackson had going, where his first 10 hits this season in an Orioles uniform were all extra base hits, 7 doubles and 3 home runs in that stretch. He finally had his first single as an Oriole on Friday night. Of course, those first 10 hits being extra base hits with a new team set a new Major League Baseball record. I believe they had data dating back to 1974 on that, and Alex Jackson is atop the list. His streak ends at 10 with the 2 singles, but hey, the hits are hits from your backup catcher. You love the doubles and homers. You'll take the singles as well. And there was just so much contribution, you would figure the Orioles would find a way to win that game. And you know, they did score 7 runs on 13 hits. That's a pretty good offensive output. However, they just couldn't get it done because even though they got some big hits, certainly, they still went 3 for 14 with runners in scoring position on Friday night. They left a lot of runners on base in this game, left a lot of potential runs out there. and just really, really struggled to come through. I mean, from the bottom of the first inning, they loaded the bases with one out, and Cowser and Mayo struck out back-to-back to end the inning, and that kind of started the trend of what went on in this game where, yes, did they convert some? Of course. You score 7 runs. Your offense is coming through with some big swings, but not big enough swings, really, in this game for the O's. They couldn't get the big hits they needed throughout this one. Had a couple of good innings, right? 3 in the 4th, couple runs in the 6th. Like they kept adding late to stay in the game, but it was not enough. And that's not really on the offense, though, because what went wrong from this game was the pitching and defense. Like the Orioles give up 10 runs, you're generally going to lose games. That is what happened on Friday night. Cade Povich got the start for the Orioles. He had the strikeout stuff early, which was nice to see. Put up zeros in the first and second, actually struck out the side in the second inning. He was using, he had that good changeup when he came up to the big leagues last year. He kind of tinkered with his changeup grip this year, added that kick change to get more movement or kind of a different movement profile. It worked for a while, but last couple of starts, Povich has gone back to the 2024 version of his changeup, and it's really been the best his changeup's been all year. So pitchers are always tinkering, especially young pitchers, and that's what Povich has been doing. It's playing up. But he was basically just a 3-pitch pitcher. We did not see one single sweeper thrown by Povich on Friday. He was basically 4-seam fastball, curveball, changeup against a lot of righties in the Astros order. They hit lefties really, really well, and they did it again. Now, errors didn't help him. There was one throwing error by him. There was another one, and he ends up giving up 4 runs in the 3rd inning because of some bad pitching and some bad defense. It was kind of a little bit of both, and he tried to settle back down, and then a couple of runs scored against him, and he wasn't even able to finish 5 innings in this game. His final line was 4 2/3, 4 hits, 6 runs, 4 earned, 5 Ks, 2 walks, and a homer on 96 pitches for Povich on Friday night. He's got a 5.13 ERA now in the season as he's back in the rotation. And I think it puts him and the Orioles in an interesting spot. Like, we're going to mention it in a moment here, but Brandon Young is leaving the rotation right now. Kyle Bradish, it looks like, is going to start Tuesday night to rejoin it, so that's still a spot for Povich. But eventually Tyler Wells is going to be back here in September, and does that mean Povich loses a spot, or does that mean they go to a 6-man rotation? That's going to be a really interesting conversation, and the next start or two for Cade Povich, really maybe even the next start itself, is going to do a lot for that. And what is he in 2026? Is maybe he more of a bulk reliever for this team until they need him as a starter? The stuff is getting better. The results are not yet. So he's kind of at an interesting point in his career right now. But he wasn't the only pitcher that performed poorly. Povich comes out of the game, 1st and 2nd, 2 outs in the 5th. He was up to 96 pitches. It was clearly not working. Mancelino tried to give him as much leash as possible, and he just could not get out of that 5th inning. But the Orioles were right in the game. Like, they were down 4-0, but then they scored 3 in the bottom of the 4th. So it's a 4-3 game at the top of the 5th. They're right in this. Mancelino goes to a bullpen that, is fairly rested, at least at this point. And he goes to Yennier Cano, who's been struggling lately. And it's a good spot. It's 1st and 2nd, 2 outs, but it's also the 5th inning. So it's not the highest leverage trying to ease him back in. And Cano throws 2 pitches and gives up a 3-run homer to Christian Walker to kind of break the game back open a little bit at 7-3. And what was concerning was when you first saw the 2 pitches that Cano threw, it was ball 1 low and then a pitch in the middle of the zone that Walker crushed over the left field wall. They registered as changeups, back-to-back changeups. They were like 92 and 93 miles an hour, which is the usual velocity for Cano's changeup. His changeup has very similar movement to his sinker, so you kind of just base it off velocity on what the pitch is. But what was concerning was, at first you were like, wow, Cano never throws changeups to right-handed hitters like Walker is. He usually throws them to lefties. That's weird. But then after the game, Tony Mancelino was asked about, another bad outing from Yennier Cano. And what Mancelino said was even more concerning. He said they weren't changeups. They were actually sinkers, which makes more sense how Cano attacks righties. But they were sinkers with the velocity, which we usually see in 96, 97, sitting down 92, 93. And Mancelino was concerned, and that is not good at all. They were recategorized by StatCast as sinkers after the game. So it kind of confirms it. He was throwing sinkers and not getting good velocity. That is not what you want to see. We haven't heard much beyond that. I mean, Cano did not pitch on Saturday or Sunday, so we'll see if he gets into the game tonight. But that is certainly something to monitor with his velo way down. And then we saw Matt Bowman. Matt Bowman was called up on Friday. He gave up a couple of runs in an inning on Friday night, as the O's were kind of climbing back in and the bullpen gave it up again. But Bowman is back because Brandon Young, as I mentioned, has been placed on the injured list with a hamstring injury that he suffered in the 6th inning on Thursday, covering first base on a putout. And the Orioles said, I mean, at this point, there's only 5-ish weeks left in the season. They said the severity of Young's injury, it's not going to eat into anything with 2026, but he might be out for the remainder of the season. Now, the Orioles can fill his rotation spot because, again, Bradish will be back this week, Tyler Wells by September, so it's not like they're going to run out of starting pitchers, but this was a huge final couple of months for Brandon Young, who was going to get some runway in this rotation, go 7 2/3 innings perfect against the Astros a couple of weeks ago, and you're like, this could be his moment to prove that he belongs on this team next year in a rotation spot. And now it's good that it's not an arm injury, but it's not going to allow him to prove that anymore. So we'll see how that impacts the Orioles. But I like Matt Bowman. It hasn't been the same year that it was last year, and he gave up a couple more runs to kind of join the party of giving up runs on Friday night. But the shout out for Friday night's loss, it does go to Vimael Machin, because Matt Bowman was not the only player added from AAA on Friday. Machin was added as well. Called up on Friday to replace Jordan Westburg, who was placed on the 10-day injured list with a right ankle injury on Friday. Remember, he suffered that injury Monday in Boston in the 1st inning of that game when he was rounding second base. Came out of the game immediately. Didn't play Tuesday, off day Wednesday, didn't play Thursday, but the Orioles kept saying, there's not big structural damage. We're not going to put him on the injured list just yet. We think it's going to be day-to-day. It finally got to the point Friday where he clearly was still not available for that game, so they figured, let's just put him on the IL. The IL stint is retroactive to August 19th, so he's actually going to be available to come off the injured list this Friday if he's really is fine. So it kind of makes sense to just not be holding Westburg where he can't play and wasting a roster spot. You'd rather get someone else in there who can at least help you without Jordan Westburg. And obviously, with this season kind of being over, you want to make sure Westburg is fully healthy. But for Machin, it's been a cool moment to see him get back to the big league. Signed a minor league deal with the Orioles this offseason. He's a 31-year-old left-handed hitting utility man. Has mostly played the infield, but he's played some outfield in his career, including in AAA this year. But he was in the Mexican League kind of dominating, and the Orioles got him. He had been in the big leagues, right, 2020 to 2022 with the A's, so he had a little bit of major league time, but he was playing pretty much every day in Norfolk this year, was hitting .285, had 15 bombs, a 115 WRC+, low strikeout rates, makes lots of contact, his 45% hard hit rate, the best of his career. And he comes up as a pinch hitter in the 8th inning against Orioles legend Caleb Ort. And what does he do? He hits a solo homer on the first pitch he sees in an Orioles uniform, first pitch he's seen in the big leagues in over 3 years. And he goes yard to right center field. That had to be a very cool moment for Machin, who, not only was in that game as a pinch hitter, but then started at third base on both Saturday and Sunday with Jeremiah Jackson playing in the outfield. So certainly getting some run this weekend, which was cool to see as well. But Machin, by appearing in that game Friday night, became the 63rd player to appear in a game for the Orioles here in 2025. That is a new franchise record for players used in a season, 63. Not some of those terrible Orioles teams of the 2000s, not the 2018 or 2019 or 2021 horrendous Orioles. No, none of those teams used 63 players. That is just how injured the Orioles have been this year, setting a new franchise record for players used. And all those players weren't enough to get a win on Friday. And the funny thing was, they turned right back around Saturday, these two teams, and played, honestly, a very similar game, which ended up as another close loss. This one, a 1-run loss for the Orioles. Tell you what happened in Saturday night's affair coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. It is perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends, and it's a hole-in-one for your energy game. So whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Whether it's golf, whether it's the Orioles game, whatever it may be, 5-Hour Energy gives you that boost. But if it is golf, it's all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. And now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the U.S. So tee up that trip. Visit 5HEWin.com FanDuel.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. So for the Orioles, they lose a slugfest 10-7 on Friday and lose another slugfest on Saturday, falling 9-8 to the Astros in that one to get them to the point where they had dropped the first 3 games of this 4-game set. So let's start with what went right for the Orioles on Saturday night against Houston. Well, that is the offense again. I mean, this team, we'll talk about the bad pitching, was down 5-0 after 1 inning. And then they were just like, okay, doesn't matter. We're down 5-0 in the top of the first. We're kind of humming on offense. We're fine with that. They get 3 in the first, 2 in the second, and immediately tie the game up against Christian Javier, who again, through 2+ innings, 65 pitches, comes out of a start early against the Orioles again for the second straight weekend. Hope Javier's okay coming back from Tommy John. But Jeremiah Jackson, 2 more hits, including his first career long ball. That was awesome to see for Jackson. Hit a solo home run to dead center field in the 5th inning of this one, in the 4th inning of this one for Jackson. Colton Cowser had a homer that tied the game in the 5th. He also had 3 ribbies in this game. First multi-RBI game, first multi-hit game since August 3rd. First 3 RBI games since June 19th for Colton Cowser. He had a good weekend. Jeremiah Jackson had a good weekend. Samuel Basallo had a double at 112.1 miles per hour exit velocity off the bat. That's what you like to see on Basallo's first start since getting the extension. 2 more hits for Dylan Beavers. I mean, this guy just looks great at the plate for the Orioles. He went 0 for 3 with 2 Ks on Sunday. That snapped his streak of reaching base in every game since the Orioles called him up last Saturday. I mean, Jeremiah Jackson, to go back to him, like, he had a huge weekend. He had 5 hits in these 3 games, including his first big league homer. He's in 333 with an 830 OPS since the Orioles called him up. Like, keep your eye on Jeremiah Jackson. But it was a better job, I think, at times of executing in the big spots, especially early on. Ryan Mountcastle, 2 outs, bases loaded, lined a 2-run single up the middle in the 2nd that tied the game at 5. They got solo homers later in the game, got a big hit with a runner in scoring position in the 8th inning to cut it back to a 1-run game at 9-8. So they did a little better in situational hitting on Saturday than they did on Friday. But despite more good offensive performances, it was another kind of copycat game from Friday night, because what went wrong on Saturday is that the Orioles could not pitch. I mean, Dean Kremer goes out there and gives up 3 homers and 5 total runs in the top of the first inning. It's really tough to turn things around when you come up to the plate for the first time and you were already down 5-0. Now, the O's did it, as I mentioned, 3 in the first, 2 in the second to tie the game at 5. And Kremer, after giving up 5 in the first, certainly did settle down beyond that. I mean, 2 more runs scored later against Kremer on kind of a rough-looking defensive play in the 3rd inning. It was not amazing. Kobe Mayo making a throw towards home that gets away and 2-run score. But Kremer, I mean, 5 innings, 7 hits, 7 runs, 6 earned, 4 Ks, a walk, and those 3 homers in the 1st inning. But it was only 75 pitches thrown for Kremer, because when he settled down, he was actually really efficient through the next 4 innings after giving up 5 in the 1st. But because it was not going well, 5-5 game, Orioles kind of went to the bullpen in the 6th inning, even at 75 pitches, and wasn't a great start. I mean, there was something made of, there was words exchanged, conversations between him and Samuel Basallo coming off the field. Like, that's something that's going to happen. And that probably contributes to some of the pitching woes for the Orioles this weekend. Like, the O's had been, over the previous month coming into the series, they had the lowest starting rotation ERA in baseball. They'd been that good. And then Brandon Young bad on Thursday, Cade Povich bad on Friday, Dean Kremer bad on Saturday. And, the defense didn't help him out. The splitter was pretty good, but otherwise he was just kind of in the middle of the plate too often. And baseball is, again, a funny game. He had just thrown 7 scoreless innings against the same Astros team last weekend, and then they rough him up for 5 in the 1st. And again, I think this was, for Dean Kremer, the first time that Samuel Basallo has caught him. So that's some of it, right? He loves working with Adley. Now he's going to be working with Basallo for most of the rest of the season. Yeah, they talked in the field. Those are competitors. Those are guys learning from each other. That's an experienced pitcher with an inexperienced catcher. There's a bit of a language barrier there as well. There's a lot that goes into that. I have no concern or worry on what we saw between Kremer and Basallo. They're both going to be better for it. It's going to be a work in progress with Adley out, with Basallo's going to be catching most nights back there for the rest of this season. It's going to happen a couple of times where they're not going to like the pitch sequencing, the pitch calling. They're going to go back and forth with it. We'll see how that turns out, but I think it's all going to be good for the growth for those guys and this team moving forward. It wasn't a good game. And then, they go to the bullpen and Dietrich Enns, my guy, Dietrich Enns throws a scoreless sixth, goes back out there for the seventh, gets 2 outs, gives up a 2-run homer to Christian Walker that puts the Astros up at the time 9-7, and they would end up holding on to that one, even though Geraldo and Garcia had scoreless innings. So even it comes for Dietrich Enns, the struggles of the pitching this weekend. Shout out for Saturday goes to Kobe Mayo just for playing. Friday night, 9th inning, gets hit by a pitch, Brian Abreu fastball on the wrist, down at home plate for a while, but actually did stay in the game. The x-rays were negative and then was back in the starting lineup on Saturday. Now, he's been scuffling. He did not play Sunday. He's got a 198 average on the season. It's not going amazing for him, but the shout out goes to him because when I saw him get hit by that pitch Friday, I'm like, is this going to be just added to the list? Another injury, right? This is all this runway for Kobe Mayo to play and prove himself, and now he's going to get hurt. Like, it just, you just fall apart when those things happen on the day after, right? On the same day Basayo gets extended. It's like, what else can go wrong? I like that he was at least in the lineup. I'm hoping that Sunday off was just a scheduled off day for him out of the lineup and not anything lingering from that wrist. But again, good offense, bad pitching, story of Friday and Saturday losses. So the O's go to Sunday, trying not to get mopped. Remember, 3-game sweep, that's a sweep. 4-game sweep, that's a mop. They don't want that to happen. Been playing a little bit better baseball coming into this Houston series. Then it wasn't happening for the first 3 games. The starting pitching is terrible. The best cure for bad starting pitching for the Orioles is to have Trevor Rogers on the mound. And that's what happened Sunday. And that's why the Orioles won the game, to avoid the mop. And I'll tell you how it happened to finish off the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th, that is tomorrow. And that is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or just ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. I keep saying take a flyer on the MVP race. Even if Lamar Jackson has the best odds, might be the best bet. But maybe you go to Derrick Henry there. What about that? Or you put it on someone like Justin Herbert, right? Because what will happen is Lamar Jackson will be the best player by far, but the voters will feel bad for someone who hasn't won an MVP yet and just give it to him instead, like they did last year. Maybe you want to crown your champion in August? What am I going to say other than the Ravens? So visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. And it's at FanDuel. Play your game. So for the Orioles, they lose Thursday, they lose Friday, they lose Saturday. You don't want to get mopped out there. I know Houston's a first-place team, but it's just a team you played a really good series and won a series in Houston last weekend, and they kind of look like a different baseball team. You're coming off the awesome feeling of the Basayo extension on Friday. You'd like to at least win one game that weekend where you get the Basayo extension, and luckily they did that. Orioles 3, Astros 2 was the final score on Sunday afternoon as the O's avoid the mopping. They do lose 3 of 4 to the Astros, and their record now sits at 60-70, just 32 games remaining in this quite painful 2025 season. So I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles 3-2 win over the Astros on Sunday afternoon. And the first thing you need to know is just this is just Trevor Rogers now. Like, it's just incredible. I feel like I'm a broken record saying the same thing every time he starts, but it's because he's just doing the same kind of amazing things every single time he goes out there. 7 innings of 1-run ball for Rogers on Sunday against the Astros. 5 hits, 9 strikeouts, 3 walks, 93 pitches, no homers. Again, some hard contact, but most of it on the ground, most of it hit at fielders, not a lot of balls in the air, never even feeling like a ball off the bat was going to be a home run. And it's now in 11 consecutive starts for Rogers, allowing 2 earned runs or less. That is a new Orioles record, franchise record, 11 straight starts, 2 earned runs or less. That's incredible. Think about all the great arms the Orioles have had in their history. Trevor Rogers done something none of them have done. And this start, he was basically a 2-pitch pitcher. 46 four-seam fastball, 32 changeups is kind of absurd on his 93 pitches. Like, he has now thrown 28.2% changeups in the month of August. That is his highest changeup usage since April of 2024 with the Marlins. And when he was cooking back in his rookie year with Miami, the changeup was the pitch for Trevor Rogers, and it's kind of fluctuated since then, which has led to some of his struggles. But both the four-seamer and the changeup missed bats. His 33% swing and miss rate in this start, second highest of any start in 2025. And guys, just they kept swinging through that four-seam fastball with all that deception and movement on it. And this is a good lineup to take down. Like, the Astros offense is not as scary as it was even last year, right? Alex Bregman's on the Red Sox. Jordan Alvarez has been hurt basically all year, but they are fourth best in Major League Baseball for OPS as a lineup against left-handed pitching, and they're facing the lefty and Rogers. They had just hit around the lefty and Povich 2 nights before, and Rogers basically throws 2 pitches and dominates them for 7 innings of 1-run ball. And honestly, like, watching the start pitch by pitch, it felt like Rogers was not at his best. His command was a little bit erratic. He walked 3, which tied a season high, first time he's done it since June 30th. And he gave up a couple of 2-strike hits in this game because he was kind of missing with fastball command. He was trying to throw it up and in, and it kind of leaked more towards the middle of the plate. He gave up some 2-strike hits, and I was like, wow, this isn't as sharp as we see Rogers. And then you look up, and he throws 7 innings of 1-run ball against an offense that generally crushes lefties. It's just so impressive. And I mentioned all of the four-seam fastball and changeup usage. He's retired the first 2 batters in the 7th. The Orioles lead 2-1. The lineup flips back over to Jeremy Pena, who had hit him well in this game, who's been an all-star this year. He's been amazing. You have the right-hander Cade Stroud kind of ready to go in the bullpen. Rogers is at 90 pitches, and there's a universe when Mancelino pulls him, but he's just been so good he keeps him in the game. He gets 0-2 against Pena, and to that point, 78 of Rogers' 92 pitches had been either a four-seam fastball or a changeup. Pena's thinking this is either going to be four-seam fastball or changeup. And what does he do? He dots a backdoor slider on the corner at the knees for a called strike 3 to end the inning, throw his final pitch, and get a season-high 9th strikeout. It's incredible what he's doing up there. 9 Ks, again, season-high, most since September 12th of 2022, when he struck out 9 Texas Rangers when he was with the Marlins. 10 Ks is his career high, which he's done 3 times. But 13 starts this year and a 1.40 ERA for Trevor Rogers. It is just the 5th span by a starting pitcher in Orioles history of 13 starts with a 1.40 ERA or lower. 2 of them by Hoyt Wilhelm, 2 of them by Jim Palmer, and now 1 of them by Trevor Rogers. It gets more and more amazing, it feels like, every time he goes out there. Second thing you need to know from Sunday's win is that Gunnar Henderson would love to take this pace right into 2026. 2 hits on Sunday, a single, and had a solo homer in the first inning against Astros starter Spencer ENERGYTee to put the O's up 1-0. Now has an 854 OPS in August. Now 3 straight months from Gunnar with an OPS over 850 after kind of a slow start to the season. His solo homer, it was his 16th on the year. He also later in the 6th stole his 18th and 19th bases on the season and ended up scoring the go-ahead run. He had 21 stolen bases last year in 36 more games played. He's got 19 this year, 16 homers. Very much Gunnar Henderson right now is hunting a 2020 season. I think he's going to get it, which will be another cool thing to put on his mantle. Back-to-back 2020 seasons. Still hitting the ball insanely hard, running, playing much better defense at shortstop. He's still a star despite a little bit of an injury and a slow start to his season. Third thing you need to know from Sunday is that Ryan Mountcastle is producing kind of at the plate right now for the Orioles. Kobe Mayo was off for this one. Mountcastle at first, Basayo DHing with Alex Jackson catching, and Mountcastle had the big hit of this one. Go-ahead RBI single in the 6th inning. Final pitch ENERGYTee threw with Gunnar at third and 2 outs, put the Orioles up 2-1. He also singled earlier for a 2-hit game. And it is the 4th multi-hit game for Mountcastle since he returned from the IL when he missed more than 2 months with the hamstring issue, and he came back on August 8th. And he does now have a 10-game hitting streak since August 13th, which you love to see. He's hitting .357 during that streak, but only 2 extra base hits on the hitting streak. It's been all singles. Now, 50% hard hit rate, 13% barrel rate. He's still hitting the ball hard, and that's what we know from Mountcastle, and still showing the elite bat speed. But he's still kind of a singles hitter. The power is not there. It's still frustrating because he's producing, and Kobe Mayo's still kind of struggling. So he's doing much better than Mayo there when Mayo has a chance to step up, and he's not really doing it. But Mountcastle's running a .429 BABIP, which doesn't feel very sustainable. It just makes for some really interesting stuff kind of transpiring at that first base position for the final month of the year. But if Mountcastle is going to keep hitting, even if it is singles, it makes it helpful to the Orioles and makes it more likely they could get something for him if they did trade him in the offseason. So it's certainly a good thing. It's weird to see him back doing this and still doing these kind of things where he's not hitting for power. Fourth thing you need to know from Sunday's win is that Luis Vasquez hit his first career big league home run. It ended up being a huge insurance run, a solo shot in the bottom of the seventh off a hanging sweeper, put the Orioles up 3-1. And Vasquez, with that homer, became the 22nd Oriole to hit a home run this year, which ties a team record set in both 2012 and 2018 for 22 different Orioles hitting a home run in a season. Let's remember some guys. Here are the 6 players, 2 of them in 2012, 4 of them in 2018, who hit one home run for the Orioles in each of those years. And again, Luis Vasquez could be on that list, hit one home run in one of these seasons for the Orioles. How about Xavier Avery and Bill Hall in 2012? And then in 2018, Craig Gentry, Anthony Santander, Colby Rasmus, and Luis Sardinas. We are remembering some guys. Now, Vasquez does have a little power. He did hit 20 homers in his 2023 minor league system in the Cubs season when he kind of split the year between AA and AAA. But that was really his only big power year in the minors. More of a kind of contact hitting, slick defending infielder. But he got the start at second base on Sunday. Jackson Holliday got a day off, and Vasquez has been starting a little bit lately at third base too, with Westberg out. And I think Jeremiah Jackson, with what he's shown, has the edge to kind of be the Ramon Arias fill-in, the utility guy on this roster in 2026. But maybe if the Orioles see Jackson as more of an outfielder than an infielder, they've certainly played him more out there. Some of that's because of roster and how it's set up. But maybe there's room for Luis Vasquez too. I mean, I really like his game. He's got options for next year. He could be an important part of this team. I've liked him since he came over in the offseason this year, and he's certainly showing out when he's getting his time. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 3-2 win over the Houston Astros on Sunday to avoid the mopping is that Keegan Aiken was able to come out of the bullpen and shut the door. Entered the game with the bases loaded and 1 out in the top of the 8th. Orioles leading 3-1. Rico Garcia had begun the inning, but allowed 3 singles and only got 1 out and came out of the game. Now, Aiken did allow a sac fly on the first pitch to Victor Caratini to make it 3-2, but got the next fly out and then came in 3-2 in the 9th, struck out the side in the top of the 9th inning to get the save, retiring all 5 hitters he faced for his 3rd save of the season. And it was no sliders, 11 changeups, 10 fastballs on the 21 pitches he threw. And it makes sense because he faced all right-handed hitters, and that is usually his pitch mix against righties. And he continues his season where he's been a reverse splits guy, actually been much better against right-handed hitters than lefties this year. And even though he gets his 3rd save and he's been good in some of these situations, he's also been bad in others. I still don't want to see Keegan Aiken be the main closer down the stretch for this team. I'd like to see some of these other guys like Yarmy Geraldo, who was warming in the 9th, get one of those chances. But it's a good reminder that Keegan Aiken, who has one more year before he hits free agency, with a lot of questions about this bullpen, is still going to be kind of the returning solid bullpen piece for the Orioles, even if it is just as a middle reliever as we head into 2026. He was able to secure that win to avoid the mop and get the Orioles a W over the Astros. But that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Orioles are back in action tonight. They are still at home. The Boston Red Sox are coming to town, and Boston took Walker Buehler out of the rotation. He was supposed to start tonight. That's no longer going to happen. It seems like the lefty Kyle Harrison, who came over from the Giants in the Rafael Devers trade, is going to start this game tonight. It's still TBD for the Red Sox, who just came off a huge weekend against the Yankees. They're playing well at the moment. Tomoyuki Sugano, who's been pitching really well lately, has his ERA under 4, will start for the Orioles 6:35 tonight. And I will be in the ballpark. So if you see me, come and say hi. I am 3-0 at Camden Yards this year, so hopefully the O's can win again. Then I'm back tomorrow with another episode recapping Game 1 between the Orioles and the Red Sox. We might have some fun Kyle Bradish news. We'll talk about an Orioles waiver claim and much more on tomorrow's episode. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.